Okay, so we can get started. Thank you, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to today's session on Introduction to College Level Research. My name is Abhishek, and together I have with me Mr. Vivek Bhandari, who is the founder and chief mentor at Easy Scholar. In terms of his background, he has done his BTech from IIT Delhi and also an alumni of IIM Calcutta. So, before we begin, a very quick introduction about who we are and what we do. So, we help students in building their profiles for universities, for top universities like Oxbridge, Ivy Leagues, and other universities. We help students with their SAT preparation, counseling, and research papers. And today we are going to talk about research papers. So with this, I hand it over to Vivek to further take you through his presentation. Welcome, Vivek.
Yeah, thanks, Abhishek. So first of all, a very warm welcome, everyone. I see the number of people who are listening into the webinar, but can we first get some sense which classes are you from? If in the chat box, you can mention which grade are you currently in? And hopefully you're able to see me. I hope my video is working properly. Abhishek, am I visible?
Yes, yes,
Okay. Okay, I was not able to see my video, so I hope it's working. So I can see grade 9, which is year 10. So I think this must be a student from IGCSE. So I think they must be appearing for IGCSE next year. Okay. Any other students, any other classes? Okay, I can see some students from grade 10, grade 11. So first of all, before I start, uh, yesterday the results for Cambridge came out. And this morning, we got the results for University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and we got the results for Georgia Tech. And we're very pleased that our students have made it to all these universities. So we have students who got into Cambridge this year, multiple students into University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and Georgia Tech. So first of all, congratulations to those students for the current year, and all the best to those of you who will be applying this year and next year. So in terms of what we do and my own background and why we started with research papers. So I'm a mechanical engineer from IIT Delhi. I passed out in 1998. In my final year, we had to do a BTech project, which is a 1 year long project. You and one of your partners, you work with under a professor and you complete your BTech project. And we spent a lot of time. So I'm a mechanical engineer. We were working on welding. So we were looking at welded joints and the strength of those joints. And after spending an enormous amount of time in the workshop, towards the end of the project in the last 1 month, we realized that we did not have enough sample size to test out what we had initially wanted to do. So anyhow, our professor, he was sympathetic. He understood that we had worked hard, but we had not done very good planning. So he cooperated and we passed out in 1998, we passed out at the right time. However, the importance of research continued to stay with me. And in 2019, we started the education venture. And at that point of time, we realized that research papers are one thing which help high school students make a big difference to their profile. In fact, from our first batch, which was during COVID in 2020, our first set of students, they got through to UPenn, Caltech, and University of Southern California. And we found that research papers were making a big difference in helping the students differentiate themselves. That's how we came to research. Next slide, please, Abhishek. So in terms of research, this is what the leading universities in the world talk about or say about research. So Penn or University of Pennsylvania says that nearly 1/3 of the admitted students engaged in academic research during their high school. I think as of now, if you look at the number, it may be even higher. Cambridge says we look for the connection between a student's research and how it relates to their future studies. MIT says research and independent projects demonstrate a student's ability to think critically and engage deeply with subjects. Presenting research well, especially by explaining its significance, can set applicants apart. So no wonder, if you look at these top universities, all of them pride themselves as being top research universities. No wonder that they take research very seriously when it comes to admissions. Next slide. More specifically, if you look at some of the university prompts that you have to answer, so Columbia provides you an option to talk about any research that you have done with any faculty member, advisor, or a mentor in academic discipline of your choice. Stanford has a question. They ask you, they specifically say that the Stanford community is deeply curious and driven to learn in and out of the classroom. Reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. Likewise, Caltech, they ask you if you plan to submit a research project to Caltech. So if you have done a research paper, they ask you to submit that paper. They ask you to provide the details of your mentor. And they also ask you to talk about 2 STEM related experiences that you've undergone in the last couple of years. So no doubt, research is important when you're looking at some of these top universities in the world. Next slide. Okay, some trivia information. Harvard University, for example, admits about 3.5% of the students that apply. And if you look at international students, the number is even smaller. Similarly, Oxford and Cambridge, they have admission rates in single digits. Getting a big scholarship to a top US university is very difficult. And one thing which is clear, we have seen it through our own experience in the last 5 years, and there's a lot of information out there in the market to show this also, that having a research experience boosts your admission chances by up to 3 times. And most of the colleges and universities, especially the top ones, have rated a demonstrated interest in the field through research work as being of considerable importance in the admission decision. So I think this tells you some information, gives you some information about why research is useful and how do universities regard research work done by students during the high schools. Okay, Abhishek, next slide. So in this session, we will talk about how can high school students work on research, how can they write research papers, and to also talk about some of the myths that exist about research and to answer those questions. I'll cover a few slides in the next few minutes. If there are any questions, please send them either through chat or the Q&A feature of the webinar, and we'll try to take up the questions at the end of the event. So some of the common myths are only college or PhD students can do research. That's a very common one. Then I need to be a topper to publish a paper. Research is only for science students. I don't know enough to start a research paper, and I need to figure out my topic on my own. So these are some of the common myths, or I would say not just myths, these are also questions that stop you from starting. So how to answer these questions and how to get started is what we'll cover in the event today. Next slide. So first of all, what is research? Research is a systematic investigation that aims to discover new knowledge and deepen our understanding of the world around us. It involves asking questions, gathering evidence, and drawing conclusions based on the evidence. I think fairly straightforward. You want to understand the world around you, you have to ask questions, you have to gather evidence, you have to analyze it, and then you have to make your conclusions based on what is coming from that evidence. Next slide. Why is research helpful? It develops critical thinking, problem solving, and analytical skills, which are essential for success in both academia and in future careers. It is also a unique opportunity for high school students to engage in scientific inquiry, pursue their interests, and contribute to existing knowledge. So I gave the example of my own BTech project back in 97, back in 97, 98. And I think looking back, we did not really plan the project very well. And I think one of the skills that research also helps you acquire is project planning, because for a reasonably long research project, you also have to plan out your time, how you're going to conduct your experiments, how you're going to conduct your data, how you're going to analyze it, and then finally how you write it. So that's what we'll talk about in the presentation today. So Abhishek, you can move on. So what are the different types of research? At the highest level, there is primary research. So in primary research, you conduct experiments and you collect data which you then use for experiment for your analysis. So example of primary research would be, for example, if you're collecting water samples from different water bodies in your city and measuring the microplastic contamination, that is primary research, because you are collecting data firsthand and you're using that for your project. Whereas in secondary research, you don't collect data firsthand. You look at the research that has already been done in that subject and you use that research to actually conduct your own work. Normally, even in primary research projects where you're collecting data, you still do some amount of secondary research in those projects as well. Because if somebody has already done certain work, you want to leverage that and work further from that point. Okay, next slide. Let me talk about some of the recently published research papers that our students have published in international journals. So for example, the first paper you see on the left, this was done by Keshav Seshadri, who is a student in the UK. And Keshav actually just got admitted to Cambridge, Imperial College and Georgia Tech. So his research paper is on aerodynamic review of the 2010 McLaren Mercedes rear wing. So basically analyzed the thrust produced by the downward pressure produced by the rear wing of a 2010 Mercedes McLaren car and how it helps in stabilizing that car. In case you don't have a soft copy of a research brochure, let us know. We're glad to send it to you. And you can see all the research papers that students have done, including this one, on our website. Similarly, the second paper that you see on the right side, so Kevin is a younger student, he's in class 10th, and this is his research paper on effect of Christmas on the cryptocurrency market. So this is more of a econometrics or AI kind of a paper where he's using AI to analyze the trends in the cryptocurrency market during different times of the year. Next slide. So the first paper on the left side, exoplanet detection using machine learning. So this is a research paper done by Prithvi Raj. And in this paper, he collected the data from that has been stored by NASA and the James Webb Telescope. And he created an AI agent for reviewing the data to identify exoplanets. So again, this is a computer science project, more specifically in the field of computer vision within computer science. Likewise, how government corruption impacts the real economy. So this student wrote a paper on government corruption. So this is broadly within the realm of macroeconomics. So as you can see, students have written papers on multiple subjects, including mechanical engineering, econometrics, AI, computer vision, macroeconomics, etc. Next slide. So this is what a published paper looks like. And depending on the subject or the topic the student is writing upon, we identify the right journals which would be the most suitable for that kind of paper. So you will see that there are examples of different journals here. So depending on whether it's a engineering paper or whether it's a life sciences paper or whether it's economics or international research, international relations paper, they get published in different journals. Next slide. Now we come to what are the different research subjects that the students can work on. So broadly speaking, the fields that we offer are physics, biology, computer science, economics, psychology, and chemistry. This is at the highest level. However, our students work on specific areas or topics within these subjects. So for example, in physics, some of our students have worked on quantum mechanics. They've also worked on superconductivity, optics, photonics, magnetism, material physics, and nanotechnology. And I think this is really important because there are lots of interesting fields within each of these subjects where work is going on. I mean, every day there are new developments. I mean, similarly in biology, students work on molecular biology, genetics, biotechnology, hematology, oncology, immunology, and food science. So when a student wants to start with us, we spend some time trying to understand what is of interest to them and some topics which they want to research. Once you have an idea of what kind of topic they want to work on, we share the resumes of our mentors and professors, and we try to identify a mentor or professor who has specific experience on the topic that you want to research. So for example, we would not have a general mentor for biology. We would say that, okay, for molecular biology, so and so is the mentor. Or if you want to research something on biotechnology, so this person is the mentor because he is the expert in biotechnology, and the person might be a postdoctoral researcher who is, after completing their PhD, researching on a particular topic. So that allows our mentors to be real experts on that topic and to guide the students in pursuing the right kind of paper in that particular subject in the topic of their choice. Similarly, for all the subjects, similarly for comp science, economics, psychology, or chemistry. So students pursue research papers within these subjects. However, the topic depends upon the student's knowledge as well as the mentor's assessment of what the student will be able to accomplish within those 12 weeks on the research paper. Next slide. So a few things to keep in mind as you approach your research papers. So the first one is identify the project most suitable for you. Ideally, you want a subject and topic which is related to the college major you plan to pursue. I mean, for example, if you want to pursue a major in comp science, it will be more beneficial if you select a research paper which is either related to physics or which is related to comp science. If you pursue a research paper related to economics or business studies, that will be less relevant over there. So first of all, identify the project most suitable for you. And what kind of work would you like to do? Do you want to do primary research? Do you want to do a computer-based simulation? Do you want to make an object? Or you want to do secondary research? In some cases, you may not have an option for primary research. For example, if you want to do something on astrophysics, it is very unlikely that you will get any kind of primary data that you can use for your work. So there it will have to be based on secondary research or work that others have done. The second thing is understand the time available to you and the resources. So for example, the research expectations from a PhD scholar who has completed their bachelor's and master's and who is doing this full time with access to laboratories in a university are quite different compared to expectations from a high school student. And I think it is important to understand what are the resources, laboratories, data sources, etc. available to you that you can use for your project. Then the next thing This is probably the most important part. Discussion with your research guide on the scope of the project. What is it that you're trying to answer through that research? What is the literature you're going to review? And how are you going to collect your data? If you have answered this point properly, chances are very high that you will be successful in your project and you'll be able to publish it. And then finally, the last part is finalize your paper and submit it for publication. So the way things work at Easy Scholar, for example, so when a student comes to us wanting to do research in a subject, we ask them for specific topics or ideas within that subject. So our team helps them ideate about what kind of topics would they like to work on, etc. Once we have a sense of that topic, we set up a meeting with a suitable mentor who is either a professor or who is a postdoctoral researcher who is doing the research in that same topic. And then in that meeting with the mentor, there is a discussion about whether it's going to be primary research, secondary research, what is it that you can accomplish. The mentor is also able to tell you, they can also tell you with their own experience, what is it that you cannot accomplish in that project. So I think that's where the right planning is crucial. And then finally, once the research question is decided, then you work with the mentor, you start the project, then you finally review you submit a report to the mentor, they review it, correct it, help you make changes. And then finally, it is submitted for publication. Next slide. So this gives you a sense of how the project works with the mentors. So in the initial session, as I said, there is a discussion about what is the scope of the project, whether the project is practical or not. If that project that the student is thinking is not practical, then what is it that the mentor thinks they can do? So that discussion, initial discussion is extremely important. And I think after that initial discussion, the mentors also, since we're giving mentors who are experts on that topic, the mentors are able to expose the students to their own research work and the kind of work that they can expect to do. They give them some examples of other research papers that have been published in that particular topic, which gives a starting point. And then the students meet up with the mentors once in a week to complete the project. Typically, the projects are completed in about 12 weeks. And you meet up with the mentor once in a week for an hour. Outside that 1 hour, you are also expected to work for about 4 to 5 hours on your own per week in order to come up with a good paper. Okay, Abhishek, next slide. These are some of the sample mentor profiles that work with our students. So you will see that these are all either professors or postdoctoral researchers who are specialized in researching a particular topic. And we have moved beyond the stage where the mentors are generally coaching for physics or for biology or for chemistry or for economics. I mean, if somebody is interested in economics, we want to know whether you want to do microeconomics, macroeconomics, developmental economics, applied microeconomics, etc. And then an expert whose own research is in that aligned to that field will be working with you. Similarly for comp science, similarly for molecular biology, etc. Next slide. So some more information about some of the mentors. And as you'll see, the mentors have completed their own studies from top universities and they're experts in the field in which they work with the students. Next slide. So this is the advantage students have when they work with us. So they attend one-on-one sessions with professors and postdoctoral researchers. They have flexibility to choose the research topics of their choice. The research program is available around the year. High quality papers are published in international journals. At this point, we have a 95% success rate in terms of publication of papers in international journals. And students that do well, they also receive letters of recommendation from their mentors. Next slide. These are some examples of success stories or some of the students who have worked with us and who are now studying at top universities. Um, Advait is at UPenn, Olivia is at Dartmouth, Rakshit is at Stanford, and Arnav is at University of Cambridge. Now, with the results coming out for this year, this slide will get updated with some additional students from this year as well. But as you can see, our students have gone to all the top research universities in the world. Next slide. So with that, we come to the end of the presentation. If there are any questions, we are glad to handle them now. You can type your questions in the chat and we will take them up as you send them. Okay, so the first question is from Rahul. Are there any prerequisites? Are there any prerequisites or prior knowledge required to participate in the research program? So Rahul, this is a really great question. Yes, there would be some prerequisites. And as I said, when a student starts with us, we ask them to come up with the subject that they're interested in, along with some of the topics. So the reason we ask the student to come up with the topic is, we want to know what is it that you want to work upon. And that's where the mentor would discuss with you and understand what is your understanding of that subject and that topic. Because, for example, if you're a grade 9 student and you want to do some research on, for example, gravitation, you might not know all the theory behind that to make that project a success. So depending on the particular topic that you want to research on, there may be prerequisites. We can't tell you in advance, but if you tell us what you want to research on and what is the topic, then the team can discuss with you whether that is something practical and that will benefit you or not. Hopefully that answers your question. So there is a question, what if it is mainly based on innovative experimentation with highly unstable results? So that's a question from Draco. So in research, in any high quality project, there is also something called as statistical analysis. So there are tools, there is something called analysis of variance, etc. So what happens is, if you are conducting experiments, normally you have to conduct a certain number of experiments to get to a statistically significant sample size. One experiment can go anywhere, and the confidence level, that's a statistical term, of one experiment is nothing. So one experiment does not really prove or disprove anything. So there is something called as statistical significance. And for any important project where you're testing some reaction or you're testing something, it is important for that to be statistically significant. So that depends upon the research plan that has been drawn up. In all cases, it may not be possible for you to analyze a very large number of samples. But if it is something which is truly new, if you're testing some reaction or how something happens, it is advisable to have a larger number of samples so that you get readings which are statistically significant. I am a grade 10 student and I want to pursue computer science for undergraduation. What would you suggest to me, primary research or secondary research? So this is by Suchita. So it depends. For computer science students, you could do research papers in computer science, you could do research papers in mathematics, or you could do research papers in physics. Now, there are different types of papers you could do. For example, you could create a simulation of certain certain behavior in physics. Maybe you could do a simulation of projectile motion, or you could do a simulation for gravity or some other phenomena, simple harmonic motion, etc. So that could be one kind of a paper, or you could use certain libraries to generate the data for you, and then you could use that as a part of your research. So that could be one kind of a project. There could be a different project where you analyze some difficult concept in computer science. For example, I'm sure you guys must have read about the new quantum computing chip that was invented by Google. So there could be some advanced concepts which you cannot research directly right now because you don't have that those facilities. However, you could do secondary research on those topics. You could explain those. You could look at multiple sources, and then you can provide your own essay and your article on that. That also counts, provided it's well thought of and well presented. That also counts well as research. So, Sujita, to answer this question, there is no single answer here. Depending on the project and how it is planned, there are primary research projects which are very good and which add a lot to the student's resume. Similarly, good secondary research projects, especially the ones that have been planned well, are also extremely valuable in the student's resume. So there is a question, how much do we have to pay? So for the research papers, the price per paper is $2,500, and we help the students publish the papers. We would like you to visit our website and look at several of the published papers from the last year. And as I said, about 95% of the papers at this point of time are getting published. So if the students take interest and they spend time, work with the mentor, the success rate is extremely high. So there is another question. My daughter is in grade 10. My daughter is a grade 10 student interested in pursuing filmmaking and editing as a career. What kind of research project can she take up? So if the student is interested in filmmaking and editing as a career, I think if she's planning to do a business major or if she's planning to do economics along with that, those would probably make sense as a research paper. Directly for filmmaking or for editing, there may not be direct research opportunities that may be helpful. But if she's planning to do a major or a minor along with that, that could be something which is helpful. So there's a question, how do we choose the publication house? Where will it be published? Will that be renowned publication? What if it doesn't get published? So as I said, there is no guarantee for publication. However, we have seen a 95% success rate in the last year. So if the student turns up for the class, if they work with the mentor and they incorporate the feedback that the mentor is giving them, the success rate is very high. Sometimes a small percentage of the student, about 5%, they either lose interest or they don't want to complete it. That's a situation in which the research papers don't get completed. But I mean, otherwise, we have seen a 95% success rate in terms of publication. And in terms of which publication, I mean, I would invite you to visit our site. I mean, Abhishek can put links on the chat. And you will see that depending on the subject, whether it's comp science or mechanical engineering or economics or political science or maybe even biology or life sciences, there are different journals which we suggest to students. And identifying that right journal is also very important, which will be the most suitable for your work. And yeah, that is something that we take care of. So then there is a question by Rahul. What is the duration of the program? And is it possible to schedule sessions on the weekends? So Rahul, great question. So the program normally goes for 12 weeks. Usually it goes a little beyond because sometimes students have to cancel the classes because of their own exams or their own submissions, etc. And these are one-on-one classes with the mentors. So since it is just you and the mentor, yeah, they can be scheduled as per your convenience. And lastly, several of the mentors do conduct the classes on Saturdays. Sometimes they also schedule it on Sundays, but usually Saturdays is quite feasible. My suggestion would be, if we know what subject you're interested in, we can look at who would be a suitable mentor. And then there could be a discussion with that mentor about a time that works for you and that works for them. Normally, I mean, Saturdays is not a problem. do we have liberty to choose a specific mentor? And also, will you help if I don't have any specific topic in mind? So yes, absolutely. So how it works with the mentor is, if you say you are interested in economics, we will ask you to be a little more specific than that. We will also share the research papers that our students have written in the last few years with you. We would ask you to take a look at it and give us a sense what kind of a paper do you want to write in economics, for example. Once we have a sense that you want to do a paper in microeconomics or developmental economics or econometrics, we will share some mentor profiles of mentors who are experts in that particular field. We would like you to review that mentor's own work, and then from those mentors, you can tell us which is the one you want to meet with. We will schedule a meeting with that particular mentor, and assuming all goes well, then you start with that mentor. If that meeting does not lead to alignment, you can meet up with the other mentors also that were shortlisted. So yes, you absolutely have the flexibility of choosing your mentor. But I mean, at the same time, I will say one thing. All the mentors who are on our platform are strongly curated by us. So we are ultimately responsible for their quality. And they've worked with many of our students, and the feedback has been extremely positive. So in terms of the mentor quality or the work that they're doing with students, that is exceptional. Okay, so Abhishek has pasted the research paper brochure in the chat. I would request anybody who's interested, you can probably download that. I think he's also provided a Google Drive link. And within that brochure, you will see multiple links to different papers that students have prepared in the last few years. And these are all published in different journals. So that will also answer some of the questions that were asked about which journal will the papers get published in. So next question. I am from class 9th, and can I build a prototype of an idea using some simple products like a DIY AI hand or robot will that help in research? So that can help. You will have to think a little more deeply than that. For example, a robotic hand is fairly common now. So you will have to build some device, and you will have to position it as solving some problem in the world. So for example, in the research paper brochure that we have sent, there is one student uh, who made a flow, something to control the flow of water from the taps. It was a smart aerator to reduce the water wastage when it's coming out from the taps. And in his paper, he documented how did he design it, what are the different electrical components he used, etc., and what is the problem he's trying to solve. So yes, you can definitely design a device, and then you can have a working prototype, and you can publish a paper about how did you design it, how did you make it. If you use some code, what is the code you used? That also counts as a research paper. And additionally, since you're making a device, you can also exhibit that in science competitions in your school or in your city. So what is the course fees? Are all these publication houses recognized by foreign university? So the course fees is $2,500 for the research papers. And all the publications that you will see on our website, all of them have a very high impact factor. So they're rated highly for research papers in the particular domain that they specialize in. And yes, our students have been providing these links to their published papers to the universities, and they've had, extremely favorable feedback from the universities. In fact, I see some people have joined late. So I was mentioning this at the beginning of the session that yesterday we got admits for Cambridge. So one of our students, he has written a paper on the 2010 Mercedes McLaren car and the rear wing for that car. So he got selected to Cambridge, Imperial College, and Georgia Tech. Similarly, in the list of papers, you will find many other students who have been selected to other top universities, including Caltech, UPenn, Georgia Tech, Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and Columbia, etc. So yes, I mean, the feedback that our students have had in terms of attaching those digital object identifiers to the applications have been extremely positive. So any other questions, anything else that anybody wants to know? Can we patent our research like if I've made a sophisticated robot for a specific field? So patent is a slightly more complicated issue. There are different types of patents. Sometimes there is a product patent, sometimes there is a utility patent, and patent is slightly more complicated. You have to have built something really innovative in order for you to have patented that. And honestly, without knowing what you've made, it is difficult to talk about whether it can be patented or not. But theoretically speaking, if you've made something innovative, you can definitely apply for a patent. Patent is a long process. From the time it is published to the time it is granted, there is a long process. So theoretically, if you invent something new, or if you invent a new way of doing something, you can patent it. But it's not straightforward. It's a slightly longer process. I have built a prototype to solve the irrigation crisis in my country. How do I know that it's innovative enough for a patent? So my suggestion is you should go to the patent website. There is a website for the patent office in India, for example, and I mean similarly in different countries. And you can see what are the patents that have been granted for irrigation devices. And then I think that will give you a sense whether it's innovative enough or not. And beyond that, I mean, you would require some specific help from a patent attorney who can help you file for the patent application. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else that we did not cover? How many publications will a candidate be able to go in course of 12 weeks? So your one research paper will be published in one publication. Yeah, so in the 12-week program, the student will meet the professor once in a week for 12 weeks. The student will have to study or work for about 4 to 2 hours outside of that class each week, and this will lead to one publication. So at this time, I'm not showing any other questions. So there is a question like if we get to do genetically modified creatures, do we face ethics in such sensitive topic if you're only doing it for research? So anything to do with genetics, it is controlled. And yes, there are ethical concerns. So I don't know which country you are based in, but different countries have different standards for genetic modification or creating hybrid creatures. So that is a I would say that is more complicated than something that you should do at high school level. And definitely the ethical questions about anything to do with genetics. I mean, in fact, in many countries, especially in the European Union, a lot of genetic research is also illegal. So please be careful about anything where you're doing, where you're trying to modify the genes or edit the genes, etc. So Abhishek, I don't show any other questions. Anything you want to cover?
No, Vivek. So, students, I have actually shared the brochure link. So, as Vivek mentioned, you can go through some of the already published paper. There are links on pages 4, 5, and 6. Additionally, if you have any other questions, you can let us know now, or you can reach out to our WhatsApp number. So that also I have pasted in the chat. In case you have any questions now or maybe later, you can always connect with us, and we'll be glad to help.
Everyone, have a good day.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a nice day.